Tonight, we are taking a trip to Stockholm Syndrome, that is, because we're talking about The Night Porter. So let's start the show. Hey guys, thanks for joining the cult. We really appreciate it. Do us a favor, head over to cult or fucking A. Hey guys, thanks for joining the cult. We really appreciate it. Do us a favor, head over to iTunes, leave us a review. We will give you a shout out at the end of the show. Then when you're done with that, head over to cultfilmandreview.com for all your cult film and review needs. You can also pick up t-shirts there. And then t-shirt. Then July 5th. Ever you say it so fun like that, I just want to say it. Then July 5th, join us at Phoenix Film Bar for a hard ticket to Hawaii. Should be a good time. They can get tickets where, Chris?
The Film Bar, phx.com. Got a lot of giveaway stuff going on at that show, guys.
Hell yeah. Sell it, Chris.
We got to put that out there. We got tons of stuff sent to us. We got Frisbees that we're going to be giving away. So
fucking Frisbees.
Hey, don't be advertising that. We're going to keep those.
Oh,
no.
Kyle's keeping the good
That's
stuff.
for the fans.
Hey, you worked in retail before. You know you keep the good stuff.
That's what you do.
The filmbarphx.com. Get your tickets.
As always, I am
Get your
joined
good stuff.
by Kyle Smith.
Hey, how's it going?
Chris Wilbeck.
Hey, what's up?
And Michael Salustio.
Hello, everybody.
Tonight we're talking about The Night Porter. It was directed by, Tonight we're talking about The Night Porter. It was directed by Lillian Cavani, and it came out in 1974, and currently sits at a 68% on Rotten Tomatoes. This was Mike's pick. Mike, why'd you pick The Night Porter?
Well, it was also a fan pick.
It was a fan pick. Also.
This was a fan pick?
I had no idea.
Yeah.
This was Mike's pick. Mike, why'd you pick this film?
Well, it's a long story, Cody. Get ready. Almost longer than this film. Having been sitting down with my girlfriend, we were going over some stuff, looking into magazines and stuff like that, and she shows me this picture right here. And I'll show it to the camera. You can catch this out on the YouTube when it comes out.
Okay.
But it is a picture, and I'll describe it, of Keira Knightley, the beautiful Keira Knightley, in a seductive pose with overalls covering up, and she's covered up, and she's got these long
Nipples?
What?
No, Cody, those are called gloves.
These long gloves on, right? So my girlfriend's like, that's a pretty photo, right? And I was like, yeah, it's a good one. You know, it's a nice photo, nice cover. And she said, yeah, it's from that famous cult film. And I was like, what famous cult film? And she's like, you don't know, like the famous Nazi cult film. And I was just like, what is it called? And she's like, The Night Porter. Have you ever seen it? And I was like, yeah, of course. I'd run a cult film podcast. Of course. Why haven't I heard this film? I had not heard of this film.
Sure.
And I did not know what the hell she was talking about when she was talking about it. But she was like, yeah, it's that Nazi cult film. Really popular. It has that memorable scene of her dancing and stuff like that. I was like, I have no idea what that is. Mm-hmm. And I said, but, let me read into it first before I pick it, right? I'm just going to go off because my girlfriend said so, right?
Okay.
Just joking. So, a few days later, we get a fan pick.
We did. We got a fan pick from I'm a Punts, and the request was for The Night Porter, and the description that says, tell us why we should review this movie, simply says, this shit is fucked up. So
that's it,
okay.
huh?
That's literally all it fucking says.
Right after I read this review, I'm thinking, okay, Ima, my girlfriend, that I clearly think it's my girlfriend playing off as a character called Ima Punt.
Got it.
So I interrogated her.
Yeah.
No, it's a real thing. And it just seemed like such a weird coincidence. And I was like, well, I feel like this is like some kind of destiny kind of thing. I should probably review this film. And here we are.
Here?
And it's all thanks to Keira Knightley.
We are.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Keira Knightley.
All right, it's where it all started, yeah.
Going back to the beginning,
Had anyone else in this room heard of this movie before? Kyle?
I've heard the title. I just because of collecting of Criterion films and stuff, and I get all of their newsletters and I follow up on it. So when stuff is announced or released, I tend to find out, or from Brother Ryan. But I've never seen it, never read about the synopsis or anything. So I went into this one really cold.
What about you, Chris?
Nope. Had never heard of it. I'm often... I feel like we're seeing the Criterion logo come up a lot in a lot of films that we've been doing lately that we might consider cult films. I didn't know it was going to be on the Criterion Collection, and it came up, and I was like, okay. And it just made me kind of reflect, like, what does that mean to me? Like, when I see that logo, like, what does it set me up for? Like, right off the bat. And so I was like, okay, this is this obviously in like some kind of high regard, in some way. So
sure.
So yeah, that's all I knew going into it. Was like, all right, I'm in for some more, maybe something more artistic.
I will say when I downloaded this, when I legally acquired this, I was a little, I was very confused because of like the screenshots I saw online. I'm like, wait, what is this? And I actually was like, well, this isn't what Mike picked. There's got to be a different Night Porter from a different era because it's not this one.
It is. It's about a brewmaster.
A brewmaster called the Night Porter.
He comes up with his most perfect brew, the Night Porter.
It's a famous beer, and it gets stolen by his friend Billy the Stout.
Good one. Good one.
Yes, and
I can't yes and to that one. That was just too good.
Just leave it.
Anyway, so yeah,
I have not heard of this film either. I didn't even know what I was like. What the fuck is a porter? That's what I said.
It's a chalky beer.
No,
a chunky beer.
But I didn't think that's what the movie was about. I didn't think there was a specific night beer that you had to drink. So I was like, what the fuck's a night porter? I had no idea what that meant.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went into it blind. I hit play. And was just like,
you really need to start reading synopsises or stuff.
So just like Chris said, when you get initial, like I feel like now that we've been doing this, like Chris said, we've done a lot of Criterion Collection movies at this point, and it brews a feeling in me too, which is like, I'm probably not gonna like this, but okay, like go in with an open mind, maybe I will. Usually, because it tends not to be my
Lady Snowblood was Criterion.
There's some of them that I do like, and that's why I'm saying keep an open mind, because there is the ones that I do like, and I kept an open mind with this, and I thought this movie was going. Sorry, that was me. I thought this movie.
You get fucking updates.
Yeah, actually, fucking.
He's trying to keep his computer working. Leave him alone. He's got to get those security updates, okay?
you got a patch Tuesday, bro. Yeah. Patch Tuesday coming up.
As this film was going on, I was expecting a different turn for it to take than it did. Which I think the front of the film kind of sets up differently, and then the second half.
I don't think anybody going into this blind could ever see
where it goes,
where this is going.
No, I was just kind of staring at the screen.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of ingesting it. I mean,
me too. That's exactly my watching experience. It's a great way to describe it.
The psychology of going into it also of, well, not only the Criterion logo being on it, but like the artwork that they use to, it doesn't scream. It's a very subtle way, but when you see it that it's Nazi related.
Yeah, if it's the one where it's her and
with the suspenders,
the photo with the suspenders and stuff like that. You can't, even if you're not getting a close-up view, you're like, that hat looks familiar.
Well, and also, like, you can kind of see the shape of a Nazi symbol possibly behind her in red. You know what I mean? Like, it's definitely, the symbology is there, and you can pick it up if you're familiar with it. But it's like, yeah, it does look, actually, I feel like that artwork makes it look a little more exploitive than maybe what I feel like I got out of this movie.
Let me ask you this question, because I think Chris, when you asked it earlier, I think I would like to know the answer of everybody here. When you hear Criterion Collection or Criterion, what do you think, Kyle?
I think when I hear Criterion, I think it's a carefully curated collection of films that. It doesn't stick to one specific genre, but it's carefully curated in a way that these are films that they feel are important in some way, be it from a creative aspect, from a storytelling aspect, or pay homage to directors that have given a lot to the world of filmmaking. So that's kind of what I go into it. It's a lot different when I see like a Shout Factory, or if I see what's the other one that does? Oh, Vinegar Syndrome. You know, with Vinegar Syndrome, I think, is it a porn? I don't know.
I don't know. Should I trust just the title?
Yeah, we'll see.
It's called Slapskin. I don't really know what that could be, but it could be a horror
It's
film.
actually about a killer mannequin with a skinned hand.
Or it could be about a bass player. We're not really sure.
He could be slapping the skins.
No.
Yeah. So, or Shout Factory, I'm thinking 80s cheesy horror movie. You know what I mean? So, yeah, Criterion is the one that catalog where I think I'm getting. You know what I think? I think I don't know what I'm gonna get, but it'll probably be interesting and it'll probably make me think. So that was a really long answer. There you go. I've thought about it.
Great answer.
Thought about it.
What about you, Chris?
Didn't you already say?
No, I don't think so. Kyle just kept going, which was
Yeah.
good. It was a good
Talked for
answer,
everyone.
and I do agree. Obviously, it's just a distribution company that curates what I believe are just highbrow art house films of all genres. And I don't mean art house can be a broad term for just creative filmmaking, like directors that tend to push the boundaries or do something different or unique, or their films have some kind of major cultural impact, or it maybe it opened the door for a lot of other things to come. Like, I think they're really good at picking those films out carefully and curating them, and so I like that it spans a bunch of different genres, because honestly, Criterion's hit or miss for me personally. Like, I don't love everything that they put out. I'm like, okay, some stuff is okay.
I will just really quick before you go. I do want to say I don't know if I would agree with the statement of highbrow. I mean, they just put out Jackie Chan's Police Story and Police Story 2.
I guess, yeah. I mean, that's what I think of when I think of the films that I've watched
Art
on
house for
Criterion's collection. Yeah, I might not go watch Police Story, but so
Goddamn mistake.
Well, I mean, I don't know.
I mean, I get Police Story 2, Chris, but
Yeah.
Police Story 1?
Yeah, nobody saw Police Story 2.
Maybe Police Academy, I would definitely go watch.
Criterion's Police Academy.
Yeah, they're released with all those special features, dude.
What about you, Mike?
No, I don't necessarily think. Yeah, I kind of agree with Kyle. I disagree. I agree to disagree with Chris. Is what it is. What I'm really trying to say here. I don't think I would say that they're necessarily highbrow. I think that what I expect to get when I get a Criterion film is that it's an important film in some way, or at least deemed important in some way. I mean, even if you look at our past picks, it ranges, right? Like Ghost World is on Criterion, House is on Criterion. Those are definitely two films that aren't
There was
necessarily highbrow. I mean, House
Equinox.
is not highbrow.
Equinox.
Equinox was on, and that's a terrible fucking film. It's just, those films, I think it's just, they might have an important historical aspect to them. Like with Equinox, it was because, the guy went on and did Star Wars.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, well, let's see where that comes from. It's not necessarily, isn't all the Godzillas now on Criterion?
No, they have all the Toho.
The
Godzilla.
Toho, okay.
The Showa era. So that's the early, basically from the first up till 1970.
Got it, yeah.
You know what? I will say we kind of get we kind of get the short end of the stick when it comes to doing Criterion on this show, because generally we all watch these movies via some sort of streaming service or the Plex. And I will say that the thing that I like the most about Criterion stuff is all of their inserts, their liner notes, are usually written by film historians that, quite honestly, there's films that I've watched, I'm just like, why the fuck would they have this? And you read the liner notes and it's almost like enlightening. You're like, wow, I never even fucking knew that. And they go into the history of either the country was at when the film was made, the history of the topic, what they were actually touching on here and there. And the liner notes are so full of great information that actually makes the filmmaking experience a little bit better after the fact, after you watch them. And you unfortunately can't do that with streaming stuff.
Well, I mean, that's what keeps companies like Criterion alive, is that they put the extra care into giving you something more.
Yeah.
Especially with the physical. Physical is dying. We all know that. But there are certain companies that are still putting the extra care into giving you a reason to want to own it. The same with I feel like the resurgence with vinyl. They started doing them very cool and very collector-y, you know what I mean? So that's what I feel like Criterion is doing right, is taking the extra time to give you that specialness, special information.
I actually watched this film on the Criterion channel, because I was a Filmstruck member before. and then they that went defunct. But then the Criterion made their own channel. I will say that I was actually a little disappointed that they didn't have any special features, which I thought was kind of weird.
Yeah.
Like normally I'm used to that because at least on Filmstruck it was like I would get so much extra, like when we did Great Gardens, for instance, that was a Criterion film.
Mm-hmm.
And it had a whole documentary about it, like how it happened and all the information behind it and like how it all came to be. And like, it's just something that you can't pull off like a Wikipedia page or something like that. Not even on the second sentence, Cody.
No.
Not even on the second sentence.
I'll try.
Yeah, it's just, I think when, it comes off to me like they're more academic in their approach to releasing film, as where Shout Factory is more, I don't know, is nostalgic.
Nostalgic.
I'm not saying that they don't have great special features because they do. They have wonderful special features.
I guess that's what I mean by when I say highbrow.
Well, see,
is that they are taking the more academic approach to a lot of these movies
Well, and
that they release.
that brings me to me. And what
I thought you started us
Oh,
off.
you asked a question just to ask
yeah,
yourself.
what do you think about Criterion?
No, so
I'll tell you, Cody.
I would say my perception is kind of the same as Chris's in the fact that maybe not every movie is highbrow, but for some reason to me, a lot of their stuff kind of feels snooty.
Like,
I guess I'll put it because
Chasing Amy's on Criterion.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of films that on there that I wouldn't say are snooty, but I'm saying some of them they just I don't know. There's a level of they're not for everyday film watchers. You know what I mean? Like it's for everyday film watchers who are just
I think for cinephiles,
they're definitely for cinephiles.
Okay, I see what you mean by everyday film watchers, like some dude off the street, or are you talking about a film fan in general? Like, are you saying that you're not?
I'm saying like the guy who's going to see just the blockbusters and
I feel like it's normally The Godfather,
Scarface.
Yeah, but like I wouldn't necessarily say, I don't know. Yeah, maybe you're right. You're right. Yeah. I don't think a casual moviegoer goes to Best Buy. Really, they don't go to Best Buy anymore at all to buy a DVD. But even when they did, I highly doubt they were like, oh, but it's on Criterion.
Yeah. Let me get the Criterion.
I mean, yes, I think people do that for what's left of the physical medium. They do go look for Criterion or Shout Factory or Scream Factory.
Now, don't get me wrong. I think their library is unique, and I do think they have like really good films, and I like what they're doing, and I like their aspect of it. But if it wasn't for this show, I don't know how many of their movies I would have watched before.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's the idea.
I think you have films on Criterion, or at least Janice, that you don't know that you even own.
Probably.
Yeah.
But I'm saying some of the more or not, there's films on here that I would have never.
I'll make a recommendation to you guys next time we do a Criterion. If you just go to their website and look for that movie release, they actually throw. I'm looking at the Night Porter right now on the website, and there is 1, 2, 3 film articles or essays on the specific film, which I think might be helpful for us.
Again, yeah,
especially for a highbrow film.
As Chris would call it.
I mean, look they got a whole fucking website here to tell you all about this.
They got a website,
guys. I bet their mobile works.
They curated that. This isn't
their mobile probably fucking works.
Yeah. All right, you know what though? I think it's time for Plots with Mike.
Well,
let's talk about the
23
film.
minutes in, I think it would be.
All right, so the Night Porter. It is about a night porter, which is kind of like the head of the bellboys, I guess. I think that's what a porter is.
I think he's the night desk clerk.
Okay, so he's like the desk clerk.
Second line.
So Jesus Christ.
Yeah, you didn't
I don't
Google
know what a porter is.
bitch.
Anyways, so he works the night shift at this hotel, and there's some weird stuff going on in this hotel. You find out that this guy actually was an ex-Nazi officer. And he is hiding out with a bunch of other ex-Nazi officers. And they're trying to keep a low profile. They have managed to elude the authorities so that they have kind of gone into hiding as normal, regular people taking normal, regular jobs. But they still all talk to each other because they are constantly worried about getting caught. Turns out they were under the assumption that all the people that they were assigned to look over during the concentration camps, they were assumed that they were all dead. So they had no witnesses that might think anything, right? Turns out one of them actually did survive, and the night porter recognizes her as she walks in with her husband to the hotel that he's in charge of. And it turns out to be this woman that he terrorized for a long time. when she was in prison in this concentration camp. And so you think that something's going to happen. What actually turns out is that the husband, this woman's husband, he's a conductor and he leaves to do some orchestra shit. And she actually has this weird infatuation with this Nazi officer that basically tortured her this whole time. And it becomes romantic, and they find this Nazi officer is trying to rekindle this sick infatuation he had over this woman without, of course, being caught. Because all of his other Nazi officers, he knows if they find out, they're going to kill her. And he's trying to protect her from that kind of death. So he goes out, he ends up killing a few people to tie up some loose ends. And that's basically it. It's this weird, sick, sexual affair that happens, and the two of them are trying not to get caught, essentially.
There you have it. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk more about The Night Porter. And we're back. We're talking about The Night Porter. It came out in 1974. So I was wondering how to approach this, and I think I was going to go into my of what I thought the first half of this film was.
Okay.
So basically, it does a really good job of this. Going into it, it's to me, it felt like a very slow burn of a thriller story that never.
I don't know why I just thought of Michael Jackson's Thriller, but
yeah, wrong Thriller. And it never went. It didn't go that route because they do a really good job, what I think, of building this tension between the two characters once they do see each other. Oh shit, something between them happened, and then he starts following her, and you're like, oh, he's going to kill her.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I think that's what his initial thought is.
Yeah,
it could be.
Yeah, can I say, like, really going back to being prepared or not prepared for what the film was, like when he first sees her and then all of a sudden just flashes to some insane ass shit of her getting filmed naked. I'm just like, what the fuck is happening here?
Yeah.
Like, you got inklings. You're like, okay, this guy is definitely like a Nazi that's hiding out here. But then all of a sudden that shit happens. You're like, where is this going?
So as those flashbacks are happening too, I'm thinking the same thing, and I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be like Scorpion. Oh, tell me out here.
Yeah,
female prisoner.
Yeah, female prisoner. I thought it was going to be. I'm thinking it's going to be okay. We're going to get a revenge movie. Awesome, down for this. I love to see some Nazis get their ass kicked. Let's do it.
Who doesn't?
And then it just doesn't go that way whatsoever.
I thought we were going to get more of a Nazi revenge kind of. Yeah, or not Nazi revenge, but a revenge, victim's revenge, I guess.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Honor her torture. Yeah, I the flashbacks, going back to what you were just saying about that, that felt real grimy. Then they set it up because it's like, well, you get this big cluster of people who are completely naked in line together, stating their name and their religion and giving information about themselves to these SS officers. And so you're already, and you've already kind of got the idea that he's taken a liking to this one particular girl.
Yeah, because he's just filming her,
Lucia, and so, but when it really got grimy was when the group split and they were all just huddled around her, kind of paying attention, kind of not paying attention, trying to ignore what was happening. And they're just shamelessly filming this poor naked girl who's, I don't know, what's her age in this movie?
I'm imagining she's like probably 15.
Yeah, teenager, right?
In the camp, yes.
Yes, in the camp, the camp, yes.
Yeah, he says little girl later
This
on
takes
in
place
the film.
in 57, right?
Yeah.
The film
Is
takes place in
that what it does?
1957.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we're looking at, it could be 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could be 10 years.
So you just already feel for this one character that there's you feel like there's going to be like an attack of some kind.
Yeah, right? Because he's taking such an interest in her.
Yeah.
Well, see, the thing is, like, with the first couple of flashbacks, like, I didn't really put the dots together when we're just seeing her getting filmed. Like, I thought it was, I didn't really put the dots together that she was selected from that bunch until it was probably the third or fourth flashback when you see him kind of actually pulled her aside.
Yeah.
And it's
Oh,
just
it's-
like, I see what the hell fuck's going on here.
I got it right away. It was straight from the get go. When he splits the crowd and just walks up to film
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't recognize him right off the bat either.
Oh
in,
yeah,
in
it
his
was him.
in his
Yeah,
getup.
It's
you know?
Max. It's
Well, here's the thing. So Max has a few things that he does, right? So he is an SS officer that is shooting film and pictures,
'cause
but he's also a doctor.
No, he's
He-
pretending to be a doctor.
He pretends to be. Yeah, he's an asshole even on Nazi
Yeah.
Nazi standards.
This is kind
he
of
lies and he says he's a doctor and he says he's doing this for scientific purposes essentially or medical purposes. And but what he's really doing is he's essentially shooting pornography within the concentration camp, or at least filming weird, sick, disturbing sexual acts.
So I'm trying to
sometimes
figure
violence.
out what's the reason he's doing it? Is it just because he has a fascination with it?
Yeah, I think that would probably be relatively accurate, especially considering the people that are around him.
Did we mention? I'm sorry, I kind of zoned for a second there. Sorry, guys. Did we mention that he, one of his fellow Nazi guys, stated that he was masquerading as a doctor, like he wasn't actually a doctor.
Yeah.
Okay,
he
cool.
seems to be very.
I'm just making sure I'm up to
No,
date
it's
here,
okay.
guys.
Yeah.
I guess he just seems to be really important. Like for some reason,
Yeah, I
everybody
think-
seems to think he seems like he's like the leader or something.
no,
No, I wouldn't
what-
say that.
No,
Yeah.
what it is
Well, not the leader,
their
but-
group is hyper focused on him right now because it's his turn to go through the shit.
The trials, the mock trials.
mock
The mock
trials,
trials,
yes.
yeah, it's his turn. They've all gone through it. They've all cleared out any evidence that might point them back in. It's like Max is the last one. Like we got to do this shit,
Gotcha.
and he's definitely like the most like kind of reluctant of it because he seems like he definitely wants to just leave the past as is and just not drum up old shit.
Well, he seems to have some kind of terrible regret for what he's done, but then again, that doesn't really point to what he does in the flashbacks.
I don't
like,
necessarily think he has regret for what he's done.
I don't know the way he's kind of reacting to certain things.
I'll say this. He so this film deals very heavily in what's it called? Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah.
I feel like what happened is until he sees her, I think he does have regret and doesn't want to drum up this shit. But then it's almost like when he sees her and those memories get reignited, that he almost like starts to, throughout the film, he starts to slowly transition and turn back into SS Max versus Night Porter Max. And all those tendencies and those thoughts and those urges that he had start to actually surface themselves again.
And also, I'd like to note that like these people that he's hiding out with, right? They even kind of suspect him. They even talk a little bit about his negative behavior and stuff like that. They even make one point, and he even says it like, I just want to be like a church mouse and just
be unnoticed.
Yeah, be unnoticed. But keep in mind that these other officers that are hiding out, they're still very, very loyal to like the Third Reich. Like they still believe in the whole concept of this coming back. You know, they're still Nazis.
They're loyal followers of that.
But I do get an impression that this guy is just like, I just want to survive, man. I don't fucking like. I just want to fucking.
Well, I guess
And I think they look at that as being problematic to them.
I'm wondering though if this story, and I'm not saying that I took this away, but if this story is presenting itself in a way to where it's like he was in on the whole, running this camp like with these group of Nazis and stuff. And he fell in love with what would you say?
Prisoner?
Yeah, like a prisoner. And then his attitude changed towards the situation in a sense that because he was trying to protect her, he was always trying to protect her.
Yeah. So here.
I'm not saying I agree with it, but I'm just saying I kind of got the vibe like maybe
I think
he had
you're-
second
I feel
thoughts
like
about
you were-
what he was doing
I want
because of this
I want to steer
scenario.
the conversation away from any word of the word love, because I just don't think that ever shows itself in this.
Well,
No, I don't think there. I agree with you. I don't think love is something that comes into play in this film. at all.
It definitely comes into play because he even has several lines where he's like breaking down and saying, "I love you."
What I'm saying is there's a difference between love and obsession.
Yes.
And this is not a situation that I believe
I'm saying
is
yes.
a,
That's your subjective perspective. I'm saying
it's just like the
in
actual
the movie
definitions of the
he
words,
actually
but
says
okay.
this
No,
dialogue.
but this is like captor and captee relationship type thing.
Yeah, I get it. I'm just saying
it's not
that
love.
it's discussed
you
in the
don't want to
movie.
hurt people that you love. So
I'm not arguing what love is. I'm saying this is a subject that they bring up in the film.
right.
I don't think either character. I don't know about her, but I don't think definitely for Max. I don't think he understands what love is. I think he has an idea of what. I think he does say love, thinking he knows what it is, but he has no idea. I mean, and if we want to say he was remorseful, the one scene that I can think of where I don't think he shows that, especially, I think he's calm throughout the film because that's just the tonal choice that the director chose. But the scene where he's describing her singing that song and dancing around and then giving her a severed head of a guy who bullied her in the concentration camp, he is like gleefully excited in telling that story.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was talking about with Max's change through the film, because that really comes at closer to like the last 45-minute mark when we get that story, and that's about the time that he leaves the hotel. But he like morphs back into like Nazi Max, and I think that's why you start seeing these part where when he's talking about stuff, it goes from talking about it where it's like I just want to be, I want to be left alone. I don't want anybody to know who I am, to the point where he's gleefully remembering these things. Because I think what happened was when she came into his life, I think Chris was kind of on the right path. That I'm going to disagree with what he was saying about like the character and the relationship. I think it is that Max is a person who, when he was in the SS, I think he was in a bit of a position of power. Being the night porter, he's literally everyone's slave at the hotel. He's a slave to their wishes and their whims and whatever they want of him. I think she coming back into his life kind of ignited that sense of purpose and control and command, and that's the transition that we start to see him go. He stops being this kind of mousy, quiet, leave me alone, to taking more of like a command, like standing up for himself and for what he wants, which is a bad turn. He basically takes a step totally backwards in his life and goes back to that stuff.
Well, even if you think about his initial lie to the regime, like, he's saying he's a doctor. He's not a doctor.
Right.
So what does he do? He takes on the position of this person of authority, right? Mm-hmm. And uses that to basically kind of, and keep in mind, like, yeah, all of his things that he does with Lucia, it is a power thing. Mm-hmm. It's all about domination.
Yeah.
That's what gets this guy off, is the domination part of this.
Right.
I think you're right, Kyle. I think that this position that he's in now,
mm-hmm.
I think that's like, it's almost like in the real world, he's this type of guy.
Right.
But in his fantasy world, which the Nazi regime allowed him to become,
right,
he got to be a fucking monster.
Right.
And he's like been hiding, but the moment he sees this girl, he remembers how good that felt.
Right.
And now he's going that way.
Yeah, and as for her relationship, like, I don't think, Cody, I think you were mentioning about you don't know where she's on this. I don't think it's love either with her. It's almost like, I don't know. It's almost like it was like a sense of control, and it's almost like he still has that power over her, regardless of how much years have passed. And it's almost like she just fell right back into character. Like, this is my position with you, and this is it, and I'm going to follow suit.
I feel like psychological damage,
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah,
it's
a very sick relationship.
Going back, like, Stockholm syndrome, right? But like, it's almost like, and they make a point to say it too when he gives her the severed head, which is towards later in the film. Although you get a good impression of what's going on here,
right.
Like when he picks her up the first time, and then all of a sudden you kind of see this sick relationship kind of progress. You see him giving things to her and giving her special treatment and whatnot.
Right.
And I think it becomes what essentially is this sick Pavlovian response, right? Mm-hmm. Like that now he's this protector, which I essentially think that's essentially what Stockholm syndrome is, right?
Yeah.
Like that's how people dupe themselves into thinking that a person of authority is on their side.
Yeah.
Is that when they've taken away their freedom, they take everything away, and they're the only means of giving something back.
Yeah.
Right.
You get attached to that concept of reward
Right.
system. It's a
Sure.
sick, disgusting thing, and it's essentially brainwashing.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with that being said, like I can see how people can read that into this film, 100%. My only problem with it that I had was when I was looking up stuff, I was like, and again, I'm getting my information from Google, and I'm not an expert in this stuff, but from what I understand, when the Stockholm Syndrome was discovered in 1973, this movie came out in 1974. So I would imagine it was probably filming either during 1973 or just thereafter. It was a Norman Strong Bank or something like that robbery, where a hostage crisis was best known for the origin of the term Stockholm Syndrome was 1973.
Okay,
Right.
so what's your point?
So my point is that I don't think the filmmaker may have had enough time to really understand or know what Stockholm Syndrome was, if this is where the origin was in 1973 when the film was released a year later. I would imagine
I don't
they would have
know.
been filming at the time
I don't
where
know
the
about
term
that.
was deemed, and that's
Well,
where I kind of have a problem
They
with
don't
this film.
say
So can I say-
Stockholm Syndrome in this movie.
Yeah, they don't.
No.
And keep in mind that, like, just because you don't give a name to a disease or a psychological syndrome does not mean that people don't know that it exists.
Right.
Like, people knew what cancer was before it was deemed cancer. It was just that thing that you got that made people just die. Like, people knew what the Black Plague was. They didn't know it by its
But-
scientific name or what caused it by any means, but that doesn't mean that people don't understand the effects of
Right.
it.
I just don't know if the filmmaker, to me, I just don't know if the filmmaker was consciously making that decision.
Oh, I think
you've
there was.
seen, but you know.
Listen.
I'm sorry.
I
I'm
was
sorry.
gonna
Go
s-
ahead.
There's
Yeah.
plenty of research that has been done on like Nazi like brainwashing and like psychological, like testing and all this stuff to pull from to like say that it's possible that if you put somebody in captivity and you're their only provider,
Yeah.
they're probably going to fall for you.
Again, I wouldn't disagree with that had survivors not seen this movie and disagreed.
Well, of course, no,
Like-
right? But look, that's like, I understand what you're saying, right? Like, but yeah, if you look at it at a lens, are you asking me if I think it's a perfect understanding of Stockholm Syndrome?
I don't.
Like, I don't think this guy was trying to make a treatise on like the concept. The guy, I'm sorry,
the woman.
was trying to make like whoever wrote it even too. I don't know. She
a
wrote
writer.
it as well.
She was a writer. She was a writer. on it.
I don't. No more than I think that Hurt Locker is a accurate depiction of what PTSD is, or coming home from a war. Like, I don't look at that movie and go like, yeah, I bet you that's what it's like. I'm sure there's some truth to it, but you know what? That's hard to capture, man. Like, I get it, but like, what's your argument? You're saying that people that have experienced Stockholm Syndrome are saying it's not like this and it's not like this.
No, I'm saying that like that's how the survivors of the Holocaust were describing this movie. Of it, it's like no, that's not really that's not really gonna happen.
Oh, you're saying that they're
Like-
disagreeing with the fact that a woman would fall in love.
with- yeah.
Well,
dude,
yeah, this is
I
a
don't
story.
know,
I think
man.
we're talking about
So-
survivors of
yeah.
Stockholm
So I
Syndrome
don't
being
know-
like, that's not how Stockholm Syndrome.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't-
this is a
and
story.
Being obviously being 1973 when Stockholm Syndrome was. That's where I'm connecting the dots of where I don't know if this director, again, like you said, fully knew what or understand what she was talking about.
I think there probably are
With
stories
this film.
of people of relationships
Well,
that probably
I already know
happened in
for-
these
Can I
situations.
just
Well,
say
I'm
something?
sure there
we
are.
none of us actually know these facts.
Hold
We
on.
don't, but I mean,
Whoa, but we do know one thing. There was a Nazi youth. There were Jews that they used to turn in their own people.
Right?
We do know that there were instances where people took a side,
Right.
and it was the wrong side, and maybe they were out of fear or maybe out of brainwashing. I mean, here's the thing: like, even when you think about all the atrocities that happened, right? To me, like, to get to a level where I think everybody's capable to some extent of being so scared out of their mind they do things out of sheer
Definitely.
Oh, I
fucking fear,
don't disagree with
right?
that whatsoever.
And I'm sure that a lot of Nazi soldiers who rightfully should have been judged and prosecuted as such,
Yeah.
still probably look back and go, "Fuck, man, I mean, the situation I was in, like, I made a really bad decision, but at the same time, man, was I fucking scared."
Yeah.
You know, I'm not
think-
trying
I
to show
think-
sympathy for Nazis,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying that,
I think
there's a way to get a person to that place.
Yeah, I think if anything, the filmmaker was capturing the well-documented cases of brainwashing that the Nazis did, and I think this is kind of a piece of that, or a slice of a fucked up life.
See, and I guess I got a different view of it. You know what I mean? Like from my perspective of watching it, I didn't, especially on the second half of the film, after you see like all the kind of things that she went through, and the mimicking the same acts like that they're doing now in the present time, or what's perceived as the present time. And I do think it is depicted as a love story in this, even though like I don't think either character is capable of love, because they're both I don't know how to even describe
disturbed.
Yeah. I don't even know how to describe them. But I do think like it is like the director is making a love story, which set to that backdrop to me is just. Ugh.
Well, let's talk about one thing too, and this is my main thing about this whole thing that I'll agree with you on this, Cody. One of the things is like I would never know exactly what was going on the other side of this thing, because Lucia doesn't get very much of a fucking story, does she?
No,
she really doesn't.
No,
that was really frustrating the shit out of me. Actually,
the weird thing about this is that it's a movie called The Night Porter, and they really were fucking not joking. It is only about him. Like he is the main character. He tells the story. He's the narrator. It's all coming from his point of view. Essentially, You get a few flashbacks of her like remembering things that happened in the camp.
It's usually being submissive to him.
We never get a verbal answer from her as to why she was so infatuated to an extent, right?
Right. Even when the other Nazis confront her, and it's like, let's get you out of here, type of thing. And like,
why would you do this?
Her reaction, just go.
No,
go.
Yeah.
And it's just like, give me fucking something, please.
No, at that point, I mean, she had been, I would just say, tricked
she was chained
into
up.
submission, mental submission.
Well, I understand
with
that,
this person.
but what I'm saying is I don't need to. I could have heard that from her mouth. Like, I commend the director for using visuals to try to explain this sick thing that happens and where her, how she gets infatuated with this Nazi officer who treats her terribly, but is treating her better at least than all the other people in the camp, right? But this Nazi guy gets to tell the whole story verbally. Like, all the dialogue is his.
Yeah.
He says exactly where he's coming from, exactly why he's infatuated with her.
Right.
But we never get one word from her as to like, well, here I was in this camp and understand it from my point of view.
True.
And that's a real big fault in terms of this script that bothered me about it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that too.
But the thing is it a fault in the script? Because if that was in there, then it may give you some reason to feel remorse or pity on him, on Max.
Max already
no,
pours
and you,
his heart
you,
out.
No,
like,
you as a audience watcher.
You're thinking you're saying if the director had gone that route, you would run the risk of actually making the audience feel for him,
sympathize with
him.
Yeah,
if we hear more of her,
empathize.
Yeah, if she was like,
I see.
He protected me in there, and he's the only. You know what I mean?
Well,
like,
but we don't even know if that's the answer.
They
because,
no, we don't.
Yeah,
we
they
don't.
would have
She
taken
doesn't
the
say
route.
anything.
but there's two choices you can go.
No, and Cody's got a good point
There's
there.
not two choices. There's
She
a
could
lot
be-
of choices.
Yeah,
Well, no,
she could
Mike,
trick him. She could do a lot of things.
I think Cody makes a very good filmmaking point there, because I would probably really struggle with that, because from my perspective, if I was making this film, it'd be like, do I really want to showcase where she's coming from and run the risk of potentially making Max seem more of an empathetic character, because then I'm selling something I don't want to fucking sell.
Really? Because I feel like the only character that's ever even allowed to even show any remorse or empathy is him. Had she even been able to say, like, I'm stuck here, I hate this every single day, but this is my life. Like,
Sure.
even if she said something like that, I'd be like, well, that's pitiful, and I hate this guy. Like, there's a million things she could have
Also, if
said.
they attached you a bit more to her, then maybe his actions would have seemed even more extreme, Because that's the thing is, like, because I didn't know her other than she was a striking-looking woman, like, in this situation, like, I didn't feel terribly connected.
She is a striking woman. Actually, when she first came on scene, I think that's why I thought I was getting more of kind of like a revenge story, because she's got a powerful fucking look.
She's
a good stare.
She's like you'd recognize her if you saw her now, even. Still an actress. Still
Yeah,
acts.
Charlotte Rampling.
Yeah, she's been in a lot of stuff.
But I was just saying, I feel like she had a commanding presence,
Well, I think
and
she
I thought
was-
I was going to get more of her being kind of like I thought she was going to take the opportunity to be like turn this motherfucker in type of thing. So
And from what I've read about her, I didn't even know this because I mean I'm too young or to really know. I wasn't in this decade, but I guess in the 60s she was like a huge deal. Like she was like a sex symbol in the 60s.
Okay.
Like she represented like swinger culture at the time, or the 70s, I should say.
That's funny.
Well, speaking of the visual elements of this film, I did want to make sure we talked about the fucking cinematography in this movie because I think it's fucking fantastic.
I think it's the best thing in this film.
It is the best thing in the film.
I love the way the camera moves. I will say, however, I did laugh uncontrollably in the first three minutes of the film. It just cuts to a random Dutch angle of the hotel. I'm just like, oh.
That's how you shoot hotels in the 70s.
Gotta throw a Dutch
Get
angle
that
in there.
Goddamn
big ass,
Dutch angles.
like Rosemary's
Fucking
Baby.
can't stand
looking,
him.
fucking, yeah.
Can't stand him.
Yeah, I thought the cinematography was good. I guess wasn't as impressed maybe as you were. I enjoyed it, but it did feel just it felt kind of like TV
Well, I thought
movements in some parts to me.
I gotta say the iconic scene in this, the dance with the overalls and her in the Nazi uniform.
Yeah.
It's not shot in one take from what I could tell, but it felt like it was shot in one take.
Yeah, and I kind of
It's like 5 minutes long too.
I definitely appreciated the fact that it almost seemed like they switched to like 16 or 8 mil for all the flashbacks to give it just a disgusting, grimy kind of vibe. It like
I think it was. It's to
sold
mimic
that shit even more.
I think it is to mimic that they actually had footage from the concentration camps that they were doing on 8mm cameras the whole time.
Sure.
I mean, it definitely gives you that feeling.
Yeah, it makes you feel sick.
Yeah, real sick.
Well, there was like a huge choreographed dance element to this movie.
Well, let's talk about there's the one dance that from the one Nazi officer.
Yep.
Who, by the way, great ass. That's the best ass I've ever seen on a Nazi.
You know, I have to say, I just didn't expect it. That was one of the things about this film that kind of shocked me a little bit. I was like, all right.
I do think it set, and this actually comes relatively early in the film. I do think it sets a picture that these people are kind of weirdly depraved and sick.
Yeah.
Not saying that like there definitely is a homoerotic aspect to it. The guy's in a total G-string and he's dancing for essentially what might be his friend at this. I don't know what he's
a whole bunch of dudes
representing.
Well, first he's just in regular clothes, and then it flashes back to him in the G-string with all the SS officers around watching.
But the weird thing about it is that like homosexuality was not tolerated in the Nazi regime. So there's definitely that weird aspect to it. There's even like a rape, a man-on-man rape in this film.
Yeah.
That I think these early shots are trying to show that these Nazi officers are here to be are monsters.
Right.
Yeah.
Like this is.
I almost feel like there was. I took it as like, yeah, like outwardly they were anti-gay, you know, or whatever, but like maybe like the higher ranks, like they were involved more in this kind of thing.
I think that they were trying to paint these officers as even worse than maybe even actual Nazis.
Right.
Like that this was a group of depraved Nazi officers that were simply there to impose their disgusting practices on helpless people because they could, because the Nazi regime allowed them to do so.
Yeah.
That's how I took this as, is that these guys were even worse, if there's anything worse than a Nazi. But like,
you think this is the ultimate?
I think, yeah, I think if Goebbels had like had heard about this, he would have shut the place down and had them executed.
Gotcha.
Like, I don't think that like, yeah, I don't think Hitler would have been cool with this.
Yeah, okay.
Kind of thing. Not because he was worried about the human rights, but because
It's
he was
like a rogue
these
group.
people are fucking not representative of what my perfect society is supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Wow.
I mean, it almost makes it a horror movie at that point.
Yeah.
To me.
Well, it is a horror movie, I feel like.
I mean, yeah, I mean, but the problem is that there's no the victim in this has a weird infatuation with the actual oppressor, which makes this movie just off the walls bonkers and stupid. Yeah.
Well, but not, because that's a real thing that would happen. I mean, we've decided this is a condition that happens to people.
I mean, yeah, but like, I don't want to hold on. I want to say to Cody, I didn't want to shoot you down completely that this is some sort of accurate understanding of Stockholm Syndrome and how it works. Like, people do this all the time. Like, they take diseases or whatever and they expand them into a horror film, right? Which essentially is why this feels that way, because I do feel like, I think Stockholm Syndrome is, I don't know what that's like, but this is an extreme, weird kind of exploitation of it.
Mm-hmm.
That feels really kind of
sick
when I'm watching it.
This is a corner of it. This is a corner which happens to be, as described, Nazisploitation in this case, where it's a story that exists in this sect of like films and history. I mean, let's be honest, but it's an exploited version of that history.
Correct.
And, and it's not a history that we could argue should even be exploiting because it's dark.
I don't want to take.
Did
you want to say something? I'm sorry.
No, keep going.
Okay, I do want to say that there is a. I'm sorry. There is the people who love this film, who defend this film, say that the understanding is that this is actually a story that was trying to capture post World War II Europe's this hovering like aspect of Nazism that was over them still, even after the war. Like, they were still there, the thoughts were still out there, the concepts were still out there, and that they were still so
among us.
They weren't over it, essentially. Yeah, because this is a sleeper cell to some extent, right? Like, these guys
they're hiding out. They're could be your neighbor.
And they're talking about possibly starting up the Reich again, right?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
But
I thought that was a terrifying aspect of this movie, actually.
It was very scary, but I've heard really cerebral defenses on this film that suggest that it's really supposed to be saying that at this time Europe was trying, like, it could have went back the other way or something. People were having a hard time escaping the Nazis and the whole horrors that they faced.
So it's an aftershock.
So it was, to them, I've heard that this is almost a brave kind of like really I don't know, really like an artistic presentation of what they were trying to say.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you guys agree with that.
It's brave, I think. Yeah, I think anytime you touch this genre, it's either stupid, or you're trying to do something. You're trying to push a boundary, of course, and you're trying to get people to understand something in a different way. And I don't think this one was mishandled. I mean, like there are plenty of films that have to do with Nazis that are way more exploitive than this movie, that are way more bad taste, way more rude, totally offensive to the Jewish community. There's been a lot of them done, and if I had to put this on a scale between with those films, this is probably at the top as far as taking it. It's an art film and it's a weird perspective on a dark time in history, but they do it in a way that's professional, and presented in a way that's professionally presented, not this is funny, Nazis are raping people. It's I don't know how I feel about this. It leaves you kind of questioning what you feel about it.
I'm really just trying to focus on whether or not everyone here is weighing this as an artistic like a message they were trying to produce, or if this was a purely exploitive thing.
I think both.
Yeah.
Okay.
I honestly think both. I here's the thing is I think the backdrop, you could have told this story and not used the backdrop of the Holocaust and still got the same point across. I think the Holocaust was used for shock value. That's my personal belief, and I think it leans more towards sexploitation. And at points, it never makes you feel. I don't think it ever makes you feel bad enough because of her being somewhat in the position that she's in and be in love with him or whatever the director's trying to depict. It never allows you to, I feel really hate Max until the very end when you're okay, nothing happened that I thought was supposed to happen.
Kyle?
What was the question?
There's
a lot to unpack.
How would you weigh this in terms of artistic message, some sort of cerebral attempt to explain post-World War II Europe, or is it really heavy on the exploitation? They're just using the Holocaust backdrop to get shock value. So to
Here's the
speak.
thing. Here's the thing with exploitation films. Exploitation films exist as a cash cow. It's a quick cash grab, right? How do I make a movie that's going to make me a bunch of money for dirt fucking cheap? Bunch of gore, bunch of tits, whatever. This film doesn't fall in that category for me. I think this is an art film. I think the director's trying to convey a message or a story, possibly about post-war. But I feel like where the director stumbles is her attempt to convey, I feel like, major aspects of the story that is vital to the audience through only visual storytelling. That can work in a lot of films, but if you're not, if you don't have your visual storytelling like nailed down, it then is on the audience to ask the director, well, what exactly did you mean with this scene? And I feel like some of that happened a little too much in this film.
Okay.
And to answer your question, I do think it's an art. It's definitely an art film trying to say something, but I would not call this exploitation because I don't think that what we were presented with was presented in, as weird as it say, in an exploitive manner. It wasn't just gratuitous. It all played into the psychological damage that had happened to both of these individuals, especially her.
Before we say psychologically damaged, at least for Max, I'll speak for Max on this one. Do you think he was psychologically damaged because of what he did, or do you think he was already fucking that depraved?
He was already that fucking depraved.
Yeah,
so who else?
absolutely. I think we established.
Who else would lie and say you're a doctor to get into the higher ranks of the SS?
Just to take fucking video of people. Yeah,
just to be
you gotta
in
have
that.
in you already.
That he is a sick person from birth, basically. I
don't think there's anything. I actually don't know that I see anything that even the filmmaker tries to depict him as any kind of sentimental creature.
No,
of
he
any
just
sort.
comes off as like irritated about the whole thing, almost like he's kind of like, I just want to get this away from me. Like, okay, I just want to get it away. Like,
I think there's something to be said that even the Nazis within his group, these sick people, find him to be insane. Like the woman who apparently, I don't know what rank she was supposed to be.
Oh, the woman that's in the room?
Greta, right. The old woman that basically they're treating like a queen.
Was her name Greta?
I can't remember.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
But anyways, she's definitely
Countess?
a Nazi. She's definitely a Nazi. They make a point that he says, well, if we get caught, you get caught. Like she's not innocent, right?
Right.
Which leads you to believe that she is a sick human being. But as he's telling the story of the dance and all the shit, even she says to him, like, you're fucking insane, man. And he's like, I love her. I found my little girl. Fucking, you're crazy, man. Like, this is absurd.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she makes a point to say that he's batshit insane.
Certainly, yeah.
And I think, I mean, that says something when a sick human being tells another sick human being, you're sicker than I am. You know? I don't think there's anything. Now, what I will say, to your point, the ending really does. It feels like it doesn't do justice to her.
It doesn't feel like it does justice to anyone. I was trying to figure out what they were actually trying to say with the end. I'm like, okay, so number one, if you're trying to disappear and never go back, why the fuck do you keep your Nazi uniform? Like,
well, I think, I will say that I mean, the way I took it, it was an artistic symbolism for like he's not letting go of his past.
Yeah.
No, I think what we talked about earlier kind of touched on that, which was I think I agree with the assessment of his character. He's somebody who this is who he would be in normal real life. He lied his way to get into the SS because he wanted to be in a position of power. And someone like that doesn't strike me it doesn't strike me as someone who would give all of those memories up to some extent. Like he's still going to remember the time when he was in some level of power, so he would hold on to that suit. I did find that decision on his part fucking reckless and incredibly stupid though, because it's like, what are you doing? Like you were one of the Nazis that you son of bitches that got away with what you fucking did, and you're gonna hold on to some evidence? Like the fuck out of here.
Worrying about people and witnesses and one left and shit. And you
meanwhile,
got a uniform hanging out.
Goddamn, smoking gun hanging in your fucking wardrobe.
I'm
Your
surprised.
fucking bureau.
I'm surprised Klaus didn't check the closet.
I'll answer that question real quick. I do think this is more of an art on the art film scale. I think that like an Ilsa is more of the exploitative,
that's incredibly exploitative.
tits and gore. What you're talking
all
about.
it
This
is.
is definitely more on like the artsy, trying to make a statement kind of side of this.
Yeah.
It just happens to be on a backdrop that's like really like untouchable in a lot of cases.
You know, and I'll say this. I'll say this because I was thinking about it too. Ilsa is a movie that definitely, even though I know that the filmmaker is simply making an exploitive film for the sake of it, that film actually leaves me with a sicker feeling in my stomach than this one, because that one is gratuitous.
Yeah.
That one is simply using Nazi symbolism and propaganda to put asses in seats. And that, I think that the fact that that's the case carries a heavier weight on that movie when you watch it.
Of course.
I watched, remember? I think you came home because I was just scrolling through and I was like, oh wow, they added this to Netflix. Like, all right, whatever, I'll fucking watch it.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oof.
Yeah, I remember you being like weirdly disturbed about it. Like,
oof.
you're like, that was fucking rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
Well, this apparently is a part of like a whole film,
They
Italian
did a
film
whole
cycle.
series. She did like 6 or 7 movies or some bullshit.
I mean, like this,
But it wasn't all Nazi.
Yeah, I mean, but like even Sallow is included in like this collective of films that came out around this time in the 70s.
Like these shocking
art house slash Nazisploitation. Yeah, like films. Like it's definitely among a list of a bunch of them. So this was like a trend of something that was happening,
it's
pushing
a
these
fucking
boundaries.
trend.
You know,
It's taking place in the 70s. It's 30 years, 40, or 20, 30 years after
starting to
the
explore.
war. I think things are getting lost a little bit. It's not as fresh, so people feel like maybe it's not too soon to try to
push it.
Push it or try to make some kind of big thing. And let's be honest, the 70s are all about making artistic expressions that make people
There was a lot of that
uncomfortable.
going on.
The 70s are all about exploitation. The 70s are about money flowing freely for filmmaking. Is what it is.
That is also true.
And like you're in an era where you pitch 2 sentences and someone's like, "Here's 50,000, go make it. We'll put it out." And it's like you got fucking everything in the sink that got made.
Yeah.
All right, guys, let's take a break. When we come back, we will rate this Mammer Jammer. And we're back. And it's time to rate this Mammer Jammer. So what are we rating the Night Porter?
Well, the fans requested we rate it Wishes. And
Either we didn't pay attention to the film enough.
not really sure what that's.
We're going to have to come up with something.
Not really sure what that's referencing, but I'm rated at 5 wishes.
Oh, I thought you.
They rated it 5 wishes.
Yeah, they rated
I'm a punts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they rated it 5
You
wishes.
were rating it 5, but yeah.
I was like, you're just going deep in like that, right?
You about to come at me, bro?
No, I won't come at you for your rating. All right, let's do this. Let's start with. I don't even know who I want to start with.
Oh boy, deal him out, dealer.
Didn't someone complain about being second last time?
I don't know, man.
I don't think that was last time. It was the time before.
I think it was.
It was the time before last.
'Twas a time before last.
All right, then let's start. You know what? I'll go first. This is really hard for me to rate. 1.5. I'm going to go with a 1.5 on this one. The reason I would go with a 1.5 on this one is just for me, not my type of film. Subject matter is not anywhere close to my favorite. I don't think they do a good enough job distinguishing things to where it doesn't seem like this is just a girl who's in love with a Nazi. And somehow it's... I don't like the way that it's portrayed. I really don't. This was one of the most disturbing and the hardest films I've ever had to watch for this podcast. I don't know. See it if you want. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. I can see how people can see the artistic value in this film, and I would understand if you do think is an artistic thing. But I think it was the wrong backdrop to use, and can be considered by many a slap in the face. And I wouldn't blame them for seeing it that way. But 1.5 because it is shot really well, and I thought the music was well played and played into the tone. I think they did set somewhat of a stoic and I would say almost marble kind of stone feel to the whole film. I definitely think that I don't think there's any malice in this film, and the director was definitely trying to say something. I just don't think she did it right. So I'm at a 1.5. Kyle.
Try to do that fake out.
Shifty eyes over there.
Shifty eyes over here glancing the other way. We all knew what you were thinking. It was Kyle. Yeah, this is a hard one for me to rate as well. I can't necessarily say that I enjoyed myself watching this movie. This movie is a real it's a lot. There's a lot to unpackage. And it left me with kind of a grimy kind of feeling when it was done. I feel like my watching experience was as stoic as Max's whole, persona in this film. It was just cold, and I'm just kind of digesting what's being given to me because it's for the show. I will say from a production standpoint and from a filmmaking standpoint, I think it is a wonderfully shot film. I think the director or the cinematographer, they have a good eye for establishing scenes, establishing mood, establishing tone. The music, like you said, Cody, helps a lot. We didn't really touch on it in this film, in this discussion. The one thing I also think we didn't discuss a whole lot, if we did, we maybe barely touched on it, was acting performances. I think the guy that played Max did an amazing job. I think he did a great job. He embodied the disgustingness and of that character. The other actors in the film also did, I think, really solid performances in it. Me personally, this is not a movie that I think I'm going to revisit one and done for me. Because it is some real strong, some real heavy subject matter. I think I even texted Mike this. I was like, this is a heavy fucking film, dude, when I was watching it. So I'm going to come in at I'm going to come middle of the road. I'm going to go 2.5 because I definitely see there is some artistic value to it. There's some artistic creative choices that are happening in the film, but other than that, I can't really give it a whole lot with the story it's trying to tell because I don't think it succeeds.
Chris,
this isn't a genre that I ever really enjoyed on any level, whether it was, they try to do it in a comedy way and a lot of times and mix this exploitation with the Nazisploitation thing. And even in that case, I'm like, it's just like, sorry, my throat's really fucking dry right now.
Fucking professional Chris over here.
Yeah, no, fucking A. What I was saying is, this isn't a genre that I ever really cared for. As we were talking about, this definitely seems to be more on they're taking an art house approach to this genre. It wasn't as intense or as extreme as I thought it was going to be. Again, if you go look at, I guess, the series of films that's lumped in with Sallow, I think is a way more extreme film. This one definitely leaned on the drama and romance, if you could call it that. And honestly, I just felt like this movie was way too long. It was very boring. It was, the dance scenes, I'm like, okay, they definitely started losing their charm after 3 minutes of it. All these scenes that just drug on weren't powerful enough for me to get really sucked in. And yeah, overall, I don't know. I guess I just thought this movie was boring. That's the best thing I can say is it wasn't terribly any more shocking than I would expect from a Nazisploitation film. And it just lasted too long. I'm going to say 2 because yes, I think there's competence to the filmmaking. I think she was trying to do like some kind of deep message. It is a controversial topic. So, it kind of checks some boxes of interest, but overall, not a movie I would revisit or really even recommend because it's just an acquired taste, and it's for I think it's for somebody who's like a cinephile that's trying to find some deep cuts, So 2.
Mike?
I'm going to give this a 2.5. For a lot of the same reason you guys say, I just feel like I agree with Kyle. Great acting. That's something we didn't really talk a lot about, but all the performances are really well done. Cinematography obviously is a gem. There are shots in this, as disturbing as they are to watch, that are just beautifully shot. They just are. And I do think that, that the director was maybe trying to go for some sort of message, a deeper meaning. But I think we all kind of established, we all feel like maybe she didn't exactly hit that. If she was, I feel like this feels like a film that was really. It was kind of it was a tug of war between maybe an artistic message that they were trying to say and a the money and shock value. And I feel like maybe the shock value kind of won that fight a little bit. The way it seems to me is that somehow even the way they marketed this film when I read about it, it's supposed to be called this big shocking thing. Oh my God, go to the theater, it's so shocking. I feel like, yeah, there's a lot of exploitation involved in it for a film that seems to be trying to say something deeper, which is why it seems like it struggles to try to figure out what it is, and it kind of just comes off as a really schlocky film that wasn't put together right, I guess. Figure out what you want to do.
First start.
I would recommend this film to somebody because I think there are some beautiful shots in it, and I think it's a challenging film to watch, and if you like to watch challenging films and try to figure out, try to put yourself in a very uncomfortable place, go for it. But this is not a movie for the faint of heart. It's not a film for people that don't like to see this type of exploitation, and I agree. Nazisploitation is something that is hard. It's a hard pill to swallow,
for sure.
So if you're not into that kind of thing, I wouldn't take a peek at it. But again, technically well done and great acting, and there's something to be gleaned from this. I can see people taking, for instance, this magazine. It's now looking at it, it's very clear that it was inspired by that. Obviously, this image is somewhat has inspired somebody artistically.
Sure.
To do it. So
well, that begs the question, so Nazisploitation, I think inherently we look at it as a bad thing, but clearly it's inspiring pop culture.
Yeah, but I don't know that they're trying to inspire Nazis with this as much as they're trying to inspire that scene necessarily. It's an image.
Yeah.
And maybe the person was like, that was a beautiful scene. Maybe if we take out the Nazi hat,
yeah,
we can make this a little bit ambiguous and not about.
Yeah, I don't.
Nazism,
if they're referencing the movie, though,
yeah, but they're not.
I think they're referencing just the image of her standing
of
her standing there leaning against the pillar.
I suppose Madonna probably did a look like that at some point.
Yeah, I just think it inspired somebody based on that image.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't necessarily think it's
it's powerful imagery from a film about Nazis. So I'm just kind of, it's just interesting how it kind of permeates our culture, even when it doesn't mean we're necessarily referencing the subject matter of where it came from. It's a style, a style that's being borrowed from something that became popular because I guess it's a cult film. I guess this would be considered
it's definitely a cult film. It's listed any place that I read about this. It is definitely considered a cult film for doing some unique stuff with some very, very difficult subject matter.
Unique
at a time when it was pretty fresh, actually, to be touching. No,
I will say Nazisploitation films have been happening almost right after the war. They started coming out.
Okay. Oh yeah, the 50s and stuff,
right?
Yeah,
they were there.
Yeah,
they were there.
Yeah.
People were using.
You're right.
This is a theme that it's a
weird.
It's a subgenre that has a long lifespan.
Maybe just as art usually is used to deal with the darkness of our humanity, really. As we we use it to interpret those crazy things that have happened.
Cool take. I got so deep right there. My was like, as the world shifts.
He went so NPR on that. I was like, dude, this sounds like a goddamn professional right now.
I thought I wasn't on Cult Film Review anymore.
Yeah, for real.
I went down a very existential path for a
holy
second.
shit.
I was like, what the fuck is going on in the Night Porter?
Oh my God. All right.
All right, guys, that is our show for this week. Do us a favor, head over to iTunes, leave us a review. We will give you a shout out at the end of the show. Then head over to cultfilmandreview.com and maybe pick up a t-shirt, check out some rating boxes and things like that we have on the website. And then on Thursday night at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Pacific Standard Time.
That is correct.
Standard.
You'll be able to talk with Mike on our YouTube channel live about The Night Porter. So make sure you guys show up for that. That should be really fun to do. We have a great discussion about that, either that film or the podcast itself. And you can do that with Mike. So join Mike.
Join Mike. Join him.
Over at our
Join
YouTube page.
Over at our YouTube page. And then like and subscribe there also. Then you can
ring the bell so you get notifications.
There you go. Then you can check us out on our other social media platforms. We're on Facebook. We are on Twitter at cultfilm_review. We're also on Instagram at cultfilmandreview.
T-shirts.
You can follow Kyle at.
You can follow me on Instagram at cultfilm_Kyle.
You can follow Chris at
cultfilm_Chris on Instagram.
You can follow Mike
at Mike Solustio on Twitter.
And you can follow me at VHS Collect on Snapchat and Instagram. That's our show for this week. Remember, if you're going to join a cult, make sure to watch good movies. We'll see you next time.